Chapter 563. Such incredible sword intent. In midair, there was a barrier that was the same color as the void. The handsome middle-aged man and Qi Junjun stood there. The handsome middle-aged man revealed a surprised expression. He might be a primary sea realm monarch, but in terms of martial art proficiency, he was probably inferior to Li Fuchen. The sword intent contained in Li Fuchen's finger earlier had obviously made contact with the heaven-class laws. It was extremely exquisite and horrific. Junjun, your friend isn't simple. If I didn't guess it wrongly, he should be an absolute prodigy from a monarch-class sect. The handsome middle-aged man said to Qi Junjun. Qi Junjun nodded. Dongwu Junyan is confident that he has the strength of a pinnacle master and can sweep the youth generation. He doesn't know that in the eyes of true prodigies, pinnacle masters aren't considered anything. Above pinnacle masters are great masters, monarch-class masters, and even heaven-class masters. Monarch-class masters could contest with regular low-level primary sea realm monarchs. Heaven-class masters had the strength to kill regular low-level primary sea realm monarchs. Impossible! Dongwu Junyan was alarmed and burst out with thunderous power. A thunderous seal that was coiled with 5 dragons appeared above his head. 5-dragon thunder seal. Dongwu Junyan burst out with the thunderous divine ability and smashed the thunderous seal at Li Fuchen. If he didn't use the thunderous divine ability, his strength wouldn't reach the pinnacle master level. But once he burst out with the thunderous divine ability, his strength would increase by at least 50%. Bang boom! When the thunder and lightning seal suddenly appeared, the heaven and earth were filled with electric arcs. The plants on the ground were all turned into ashes by the electricity. If there was a reincarnation realm martial artist here, he would probably be electrocuted to death. It was imaginable how powerful the thunder and lightning power contained in the thunder and lightning seal was. When facing Dongwu Junyan's powerful attack, Li Fuchen still didn't draw his sword and pointed with his sword finger. Just like before, this sword finger still contained the sword intent of the incineration sword. Like a bubble, the thunderous seal instantly burst open. The powerful force had sent Dongwu Junyan flying and vomiting fresh blood. You are a great master? Dongwu Junyan roared. Only a great master could defeat him easily. But Li Fuchen's cultivation was only at the 4th level of battle spirit realm. There were no more than 20 martial grandmasters among the younger generation in South Sun County, but he knew all of them. Only the martial grandmasters of the king sects did not recognize most of them. In the next moment, Dongwu Junyan realized something. He finally knew who Li Fuchen was. The other party was definitely a disciple of a monarch-class sect, and he was at least a top-notch monarch-class disciple. He might even be an emperor-class disciple. Instantly, Dongwu Junyan seemed as if he'd eaten a dead fly, and he felt extremely aggrieved in his heart. The Dongwu clan wasn't the city lord residents. The city lord residents could make use of the Red Moon Empire's influence to suppress monarch-class sects, but if the Dongwu clan wanted to suppress monarch-class sects, it would be courting death. Any monarch-class sect would have a large number of primary sea realm monarchs, while the Dongwu clan merely had 1 or 2 mid-level monarchs. The entire clan might not be able to contest a single high-level monarch. Unless the Dongwu clan was able to draw support from the forces of the city governor's estate. But the city governor's estate wasn't an idiot to offend a king-level sect for no reason or rhyme. If the monarch-class sect was truly infuriated, they might even destroy the city governor's estate and leave the Emperor Sky continent. In the past, there were incidents where the city governor's estate was destroyed. Li Fuchen didn't deny it and said indifferently, the Dongwu clan hasn't reached the stage where they can cover the sky with one hand. This time, I will give face to the Dongwu clan, but it might not be the same next time. Behave yourself. Finishing his statement, Li Fuchen turned and left. Damn it. Dongwu Junyan slammed his fist on the ground and cracked it open. If he relied on himself, he wouldn't be able to retaliate against Li Fuchen unless he mobilized the clan's primary sea realm monarchs. But it was impossible for the clan to make a move against a monarch-class disciple of a monarch-class sect unless there was a reason to make a move. Just you wait, this isn't the end. Dongwu Junyan wiped the fresh blood from the corner of his mouth and flew towards the South Mountain City. Junjun, you have to be cautious when making friends with monarch-class sects disciples. These monarch-class sects are too unstable and they might just be eradicated one day. The preeminent middle-aged man sighed and said, monarch-class sects might be powerful and the city governor's estate wouldn't be willing to provoke them, but there were too many monarch-class sects and most of them had enmity with one another. It was impossible for them to be as aloof as the city governor's estate. Qi Junjun said, "Fifth uncle, I know my limits." She naturally knew that monarch-class sects weren't stable, but they were precisely the ones with the most potential. These monarch-class sects gathered the absolute prodigies of the various continents. As long as there were enough fated opportunities, someone might progress to the law phase realm and become an emperor. A long time ago, the emperor-class factions on the Emperor Sky continent weren't just these 7. Emperor-class factions weren't unchanging. When a powerful law phase realm emperor appeared, an emperor-class faction would also be formed. In fact, the so-called 7 emperor-class factions on the Emperor Sky continent were just the strongest emperor-class factions. Apart from the 7 emperor-class factions, there were also some weaker emperor-class factions. Of course, these weaker emperor-class factions were under the rule of the 7 emperor-class factions and didn't dare to offend them. Otherwise, they would just be destroyed overnight. In Qi Junjun's opinion, Li Fuchen's bone frame was at least 8-star and he had a great chance to progress to the law phase realm and become a ruler. Red Lake City, one of the 10 cities in the South Sun County, and it was nearby the South Mountain City. Just like the South Mountain City, the Red Lake City also had a stone gambling den. But before heading to the stone gambling den, Li Fuchen was preparing to sell a portion of the heaven stones in his possession. Otherwise, he wouldn't have so much capital. This Red Lake City should have an underground trade market, right? There would always be a dark side in any place. Light and darkness would always coexist. After asking around, Li Fuchen found an underground trade market, the Blackhorn Pavilion. The Blackhorn Pavilion had the backing of a primary sea realm monarch, otherwise, it wouldn't be able to maintain the order of an underground trade market. As for whether there were any factions supporting them on the surface, Li Fuchen didn't know. Wind Lookout Alley. After arriving at a shop, Li Fuchen walked in with a disguise. "What is the customer's request?" the shopkeeper asked lazily. "Selling precious materials." Li Fuchen replied. "How precious?" the shopkeeper asked. Li Fuchen took out a subpar grade heaven stone that was the size of a wash basin and asked, "Is it precious enough?" "This way, please." The shopkeeper invited Li Fuchen into the inner room and slammed on the wall. The wall instantly split open and there was a passage inside. Li Fuchen raised his brows and realized that the wall was actually made of heaven stone ores. No wonder his spiritual awareness couldn't permeate it. After entering the passage, the wall closed up. The passage spiraled downwards. In just a short moment, Li Fuchen arrived at a spacious stone hall. There were 3 individuals seated in the stone hall. The one in the middle was a man with a black face. His right hand was constantly rotating the gem ring on his left thumb. He looked calm and composed, but there was a trace of dangerous qi presence that was like a venomous snake. On the left and right were a scarred man and an ordinary-looking middle-aged woman. The scarred man was carrying a large saber on his back. His body was emitting a ferocious qi presence that was like the calm before the storm, violent and oppressive. As compared to the two of them, the middle-aged woman looked much more ordinary. But Li Fuchen noticed that there were plenty of iron hairpins on her head that would flash with a bright luster at a specific angle. It was obvious that they were dipped in poison. The trio's cultivation was at the 9th level of Battle Spirit Realm, but Li Fuchen could see that they weren't ordinary 9th level Battle Spirit Realm masters. Of course, it didn't matter how extraordinary they were, Li Fuchen didn't bother. As long as they weren't primary sea realm monarchs, they wouldn't pose any threat to him. "What materials do you want to sell?" The man with a black face was the first to speak. Li Fuchen took out the subpar grade heaven stone that was the size of a wash basin. "How many mid-grade spirit stones is this subpar grade heaven stone worth?" If they weren't too greedy, Li Fuchen wouldn't mind selling more. 3,000 mid-grade spirit stones. The man with a black face replied. "Isn't it too little?" If this subpar grade heaven stone was sold outside, it would be worth at least 5,000 or 6,000 mid-grade spirit stones. The middle-aged woman laughed and said, "This is the underground market and the price will be 50% lower than the normal price. Unless you are selling a lot of heaven stones." "What about 20 pieces?" Li Fuchen took out another 19 pieces of subpar grade heaven stones, and each of them had to be at least the size of a bowl. 70% of the normal price. The man with a black face's eyes flashed with radiance. "What about 30 pieces?" Li Fuchen took out another 10 pieces. 80%. The man with a black face's breathing was a little unstable. The scarred man beside the man with a black face had instantly lowered his eyes. Li Fuchen noticed that there was a flash of murderous intent in his eyes. The underground market is still the underground market after all. It only cares about strength and doesn't care about rules. Li Fuchen said to himself. "What about 50 pieces?" Li Fuchen didn't give up until he shocked the man to death. He then took out another 20 pieces of subpar grade heaven stones. "Haha, 90% of the normal price is my limit." The man with a black face laughed heartily and was rather happy. "It seems like you aren't sincere." Li Fuchen suddenly raised his hand and thrust at the void with his sword finger. A black figure that was wielding a short saber was sent flying while his chest burst out with a stream of blood. The eyes of the man with a black face contracted. Li Fuchen's reaction was too fast and the black horn guard didn't even have the time to brandish his saber. The black horn guard's short saber was a stone-cutting saber and it could even split heaven stone ores with ease. This stone hall was set up with a quasi-class 7 Qi restriction array. Qi wouldn't even be able to flow out of the body. In such a situation, the stone-cutting saber's lethality could be maximized. The prerequisite was to be able to hit the target. Sincerity is only effective when the target is of equal value. The scarred man stood up and instantly drew the large saber on his back. With a flash, he suddenly cleaved at Li Fuchen. "Is that so?" Li Fuchen didn't move, and when the saber light swept over, Li Fuchen's body swayed like a willow branch while his right sword finger thrust at the opponent's chest. An arrow of blood burst out while the scarred man was sent flying with a horrified expression. With Li Fuchen's spiritual awareness, the scarred man's every move felt like it was in slow motion. He wasn't even qualified to exchange moves with Li Fuchen. Swish, 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 swish. Right at this moment, the middle-aged woman lowered her head abruptly while the iron hairpins in her hair poured down like a storm at Li Fuchen. These iron hairpins were actually made from the stone-cutting saber. Chapter 564. Fall. Li Fuchen drew a circle in the air with his right sword finger. A layer of sword armor and sword intent formed a barrier in front of him. Cling, 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 cling. The iron hairpins were repelled and couldn't get close to Li Fuchen. Such powerful sword intent. The middle-aged woman's eyes contracted. The Qi prohibition array was able to restrain Qi, but it wasn't able to restrain intent. Li Fuchen was able to use his sword intent to repel her attack. His strength was truly shocking. Swish, 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 swish. The most lethal attack came from the black-faced man. To be exact, it came from the gemstone ring on his thumb. The ring was emitting a resplendent green light and a green flame was shot at Li Fuchen. The Qi prohibition array was obviously able to restrain Qi and all kinds of energy, but it wasn't able to restrain the green flame. Li Fuchen could see at a glance that the gemstone ring was a cardinal artifact. Furthermore, it should be an Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifact. A single attack from an Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifact would at least be at the pinnacle master level. It wasn't strange for it to be at the great master level. If Li Fuchen was just a regular great master, he would definitely be dead now. But Li Fuchen wasn't a regular great master, he was a pinnacle great master. Even if his Qi couldn't be released from his body, his sword intent still had the strength of a great master. The scarlet-red thread flickered. Bang, 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 bang. There was an explosion of the green flame. Li Fuchen's sword intent was much stronger than the black-faced man imagined. Furthermore, Li Fuchen's sword intent was different every time he made a move. No one knew how many powerful sword intents Li Fuchen possessed. "If you wish to die, I shall grant your wish." Li Fuchen drew with his right hand and the scarlet-red thread sliced open the stone hall's wall. The black-faced man's expression changed several times. Li Fuchen's strength was simply outrageous. In fact, the black-faced man doubted if a primary sea realm monarch could reach such a level without qi being released from the body. It was a pity that the black-faced man didn't know that if Li Fuchen wanted to break the qi prohibition array, it would just take an instant. With the spiritual awareness of a pinnacle primary sea realm monarch, Li Fuchen was able to see the flaws of the qi prohibition array with a single glance. Let alone the fact that this qi prohibition array was a quasi-class 7 array. Even if it was a class 7 array, Li Fuchen was confident he could break it. "Brother, you have the qualifications to make a deal with my Blackhorn Pavilion." The black-faced man extended his hand to stop the middle-aged woman and the knife-scarred man who were about to attack again. This was just a branch of the Blackhorn Pavilion, and there weren't any primary sea realm monarchs overseeing this place. It wasn't impossible to kill Li Fuchen, but the three of them would have to be buried along with Li Fuchen, and it wasn't worth it. "Alright, give me a price." Li Fuchen took out 50 pieces of subpar-grade heaven stone. 50 pieces of subpar-grade heaven stones. With 90% of the normal price, it will be a total of 95,000 mid-grade spirit stones. "I wonder, what do you think?" The black-faced man sized up the subpar-grade heaven stones that were floating in front of Li Fuchen and said, "Sure." Li Fuchen nodded. The price was fair, although he doubted if it was even 90% of the normal price. However, there was no other way, as these celestial stones couldn't be sold and could only be traded underground. With 95,000 mid-grade spirit stones, Li Fuchen left the Blackhorn Pavilion branch. As soon as Li Fuchen left, the black-faced man immediately notified the nearest primary sea realm monarch from the Blackhorn Pavilion. In just a short moment, a black-clothed monarch who was at the second level of primary sea realm arrived at the branch. After carefully inspecting the qi presence left behind by Li Fuchen, the monarch chased after Li Fuchen. Half a day later, the black-clothed monarch returned with nothing. Li Fuchen's qi presence vanished once it reached the outside. After searching for half a day, the monarch couldn't sense Li Fuchen's qi presence again. It was as though Li Fuchen had vanished instantly. No wonder he dares to come to the Blackhorn Pavilion branch. The black-clothed monarch was rather unhappy. It would be great if he was overseeing the branch back then. This was a transaction worth 95,000 mid-grade spirit stones, and even he was tempted. With the addition of over 4,000 mid-grade spirit stones, Li Fuchen had 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones and openly arrived at the Red Lake City's stone gambling den. After Li Fuchen left, 40,000 mid-grade spirit stones were exchanged for hundreds of heaven stone ores. It was a pity that there were still no traces of mid-grade heaven stones. Li Fuchen didn't give up and headed to another city, the Greenwood City. At the Greenwood City's underground market, Li Fuchen encountered the same situation as the Red Lake City. These underground markets would only talk about rules with people of equal strength. For example, if it was a primary sea realm monarch that headed to the underground market wouldn't dare to have any thoughts and would only conduct a fair transaction. After all, it was too difficult to deal with a primary sea realm monarch. Even if there was a primary sea realm monarch overseeing the underground market, it wasn't very realistic. Furthermore, once a fight broke out, the entire underground market would be destroyed and the losses would outweigh the gains. Unless the underground market was set up with a Class 7 array. With the power of a Class 7 array, it would be able to deal with a primary sea realm monarch with ease. But in the long run, there would be plenty of missing primary sea realm monarchs and no one would dare to go there to trade. If they offended a primary sea realm monarch with a powerful background, they might just be wiped out. With Li Fuchen's methods, he naturally wouldn't be scammed. With 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones, Li Fuchen successfully left the underground market and arrived at the Greenwood City's stone gambling den. After spending 35,000 mid-grade spirit stones, Li Fuchen took away another few hundred heaven stone ores. Unknowingly, Li Fuchen had already visited 5 cities. He had 250,000 mid-grade spirit stones and close to 1,000 celestial stones. This was definitely a huge sum of wealth. If Li Fuchen was to sell all of these heaven stones, he would have a few million mid-grade spirit stones. A few million mid-grade spirit stones were already comparable with the first-rate clans in various cities. Copper Mountain City, the number 2 city in the South Sun County. It is just inferior to the county city, South Sun City. On this day, Li Fuchen arrived at the Copper Mountain City. As compared to the South Mountain City, Red Lake City, Greenwood City, and other cities, the Copper Mountain City was at least twice the size and had a population of more than 100 million. According to the usual practice, Li Fuchen first found an underground market. Li Fuchen was brought to a hidden underground palace. How many heaven stones do you want to trade? The host was a 9th-level battle spirit realm master who was even more dangerous than the dark-faced man. On his 2 sides, there were 4 other 9th-level battle spirit realm masters. 100 heaven stones. Li Fuchen was already a little dissatisfied with the small transactions and was prepared to trade 100 heaven stones at once. Take it out and let me see. The host was rather anxious. The 4 people on his 2 sides revealed murderous intent. Li Fuchen sighed silently, and it seemed like he was going to have to fight again. He just wanted a fair trade. Why was it so difficult? Please take a look. Li Fuchen took out 100 heaven stones. Do it. The host waved his hand and the 4 people on both sides lunged at Li Fuchen like eagles. All of them were using their kill moves and had already drawn their stone-cutting weapons. After keeping the heaven stones, Li Fuchen drew with his finger and a scarlet thread appeared in front of the 4 of them. One of them couldn't dodge in time and had his arm severed. The other 3 screamed out miserably as their bodies were charred and cracked. In the face of Li Fuchen's flowing merciless edge, numbers were useless. If Li Fuchen didn't show mercy, the 4 of them would have been decapitated. Fire prohibition. The host made a move and it was unknown when a scepter appeared in his hand. With a swing of the scepter, a giant fireball was blasted at Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen could feel the intense fire Dao laws from the fireball. It was a pity that the host still underestimated Li Fuchen's flowing merciless edge. The scarlet thread flashed and split the fireball into 2. What a great heaven-class sword intent. I, Earth Fire Monarch, shall try you. A powerful chi presence burst out from the side hall of the palace. Immediately after, a valiant figure arrived at the palace. 2nd-level primary Sea Realm Monarch. Li Fuchen's eyes contracted. He didn't expect for this underground trading center to be overseen by a primary Sea Realm Monarch. No matter how weak a primary Sea Realm Monarch was, it was still a primary Sea Realm Monarch. Without the strength of a Monarch-class master, it was impossible to fight with them normally. Great masters might be able to exchange moves with weaker low-level primary Sea Realm Monarchs, but if the fight dragged on, great masters would definitely perish and it was hard for them to survive. Die. The Earth Fire Monarch had a head of withered yellow hair. His long hair was fluttering as he pointed at Li Fuchen. As the finger was pointed, it felt as though the void distance was shortened. This finger that contained horrific power instantly filled up the entire palace hall and there was nowhere to dodge or hide. A quasi-class 7 array wasn't able to restrict a primary Sea Realm Monarch's chi. Of course, it could weaken the chi transmission to a certain extent and prevent the destruction of the underground trading center. Clang. After drawing the flaming snake sword, Li Fuchen's divine flame red rainbow chi instantly transformed into bronze sword chi before he slashed with the flowing merciless edge. Before this, Li Fuchen flicked his left pinky finger and a sword intent instantly destroyed the array core of the chi restriction array. The moment Li Fuchen drew his sword and slashed, the chi restriction array had already collapsed and didn't have the ability to restrict chi anymore. Rumble. The palace hall collapsed and Li Fuchen took 8 steps back. It was obvious that he wasn't a match for the Earth Fire Monarch. However, the Earth Fire Monarch's combat strength wasn't much stronger than Li Fuchen and wasn't able to injure Li Fuchen in a single attack. Strength of a pinnacle great master. The Earth Fire Monarch raised his brows and had a gloomy expression. He was confident he could deal with a pinnacle great master, but the prerequisite was that the battlefield was large enough. He was certain that before he killed Li Fuchen, this underground trading center would definitely be destroyed and the shockwaves would spread to the outside world. This was something he didn't wish to see. You deserve death, the Earth Fire Monarch said in a deep voice. But are you allowed to disregard the rules and I am not allowed to resist? Li Fuchen sneered. After a moment of silence, the Earth Fire Monarch said to the manager, buy these heaven stones at 80% of the normal price. This place wasn't a battlefield and it wouldn't be too late to chase after the Earth Fire Monarch after he left. Li Fuchen suddenly said, I have changed my mind. I will sell a total of 220 pieces of subpar grade heaven stones at 90% of the normal price. Since he had already offended a primary Sea Realm monarch, Li Fuchen might as well go all out and transact more heaven stones. It didn't matter how many heaven stones Li Fuchen transacted, the Earth Fire Monarch wouldn't let him off. What would happen next would depend on their capabilities. The Earth Fire Monarch's eyes concealed his murderous intent as he indicated for the manager to nod. Ultimately, Li Fuchen left the collapsing underground palace with 250,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Chapter 565. Once he exited the underground market, Li Fuchen immediately activated his spirit soul ability and concealed his chi presence before blending into the crowd. After losing Li Fuchen's chi presence, the Earth Fire Monarch wasn't in a hurry. He released his spiritual awareness and checked carefully. A short moment later, the Earth Fire Monarch found Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen sighed. His spirit soul ability to conceal his chi presence was only effective from a distance. If he was a few hundred miles away, the enemy wouldn't be able to see him. If the enemy used their spiritual awareness to scan him, they would ignore him or treat him as a rock. But if the distance was too close, it would be easy to find him with sight and spiritual sense. After all, he couldn't hide himself. They didn't dare to fight in the city, so they left the Bronze Mountain City one after another. In fact, the Earth Fire Monarch was rather hesitant. If he was Li Fuchen, he would never leave the Bronze Mountain City. Because once he left the Bronze Mountain City, he would be pursued by a primary Sea Realm monarch. Could the opposition have a trump card to deal with primary Sea Realm monarchs? Or could it be that the other party was very confident in his ability to hide his aura and believed that it was impossible for him to track him? I am a dignified primary Sea Realm monarch. Why would I be afraid of him? When thinking that he was a second-level monarch, the Earth Fire Monarch was rather ashamed. In that instant, he actually had a trace of hesitation. He shouldn't be hesitating when facing a battle spirit realm master. The eastern suburb of Tong Mountain City was desolate and uninhabited. Spirit-destroying finger. Without the restriction of the Quasi-Class 7 array, the Earth Fire Monarch's chi wasn't restricted by the distance. He struck out with his finger and a mountain-like flaming finger smashed at Li Fuchen ruthlessly. The distance between the duo that was a few miles was instantly ignored. Good timing. Li Fuchen stopped running and turned around to cleave. When the scarlet-red thread collided with his finger, it immediately caused a violent explosion. Boundless chi waves spread out and Li Fuchen flew back 100 meters. Kid, you are very strong, but you are overly confident. You think that with a heaven-class sword art, you can contest with monarchs. It is a pity that your cultivation is too low. If you are at the 6th or 7th level of Battle Spirit Realm, I might be apprehensive of you. Now, it is better for you to surrender. After repelling Li Fuchen with a single finger, the Earth Fire Monarch grinned. That finger attack just now was just an ordinary move. He wasn't considered an expert among the low-level primary Sea Realm monarchs and his bone frame was only a 6-star bone frame. He might not be comparable with those 7-star monarchs, but it was still a piece of cake to deal with a Battle Spirit Realm Great Master. Is that so? I wonder if your true soul is as strong as your strength. Avian Thorn. As he spoke, a bird-shaped spiritual awareness shot out from Li Fuchen's glabella and entered the Earth Fire Monarch's mind. The Earth Fire Monarch let out a groan as his expression changed drastically. Primary Sea Realm level spiritual awareness attack? The Earth Fire King was bewildered. In that instant, although his true spirit wasn't injured, it was still impacted. If this happened a few more times, he couldn't guarantee that his true spirit wouldn't be damaged. Do you think you can restrain me by relying on your spiritual sense attack? In your dreams? My true spirit is a king true spirit. Soul extermination finger. Earth Fire Monarch roared and struck out with his finger once again. This time, the flames on the giant finger were restrained and filled with a bright red luster, as if it was covered with a layer of magma. No wonder it is a monarch true spirit. It is much stronger than a 7-star bone frame true spirit. Li Fuchen nodded silently. If one time isn't enough, what about 3 or 10 times? Li Fuchen had a solemn expression as he brandished his sword to clash with the giant finger. Fresh blood flowed out as Li Fuchen was sent flying. While flying back, Li Fuchen executed 3 avian thorns in a row. The Earth Fire Monarch originally wanted to follow up with another attack, but his face turned pale. The finger chi that was just condensed couldn't help but stagnate. Avian King Thorn. An extremely violent spiritual awareness that was like 1,000 birds chirping suddenly crashed into the Earth Fire Monarch's mind. This time, the Earth Fire Monarch finally let out a miserable groan. He felt as though his mind was going to split open. 7-star spiritual awareness secret techniques were extremely precious, and even Emperor-class factions rarely had them. The Earth Fire Monarch had only learned the 6-star spiritual awareness secret technique, the awareness concentration technique. This secret technique wasn't considered a spiritual awareness defense secret technique, it was only a spiritual awareness enhancement secret technique. After being attacked by Li Fuchen's Avian King Thorn, the Earth Fire Monarch's spiritual awareness was torn apart and there was a very shallow dot on the surface of his true spirit. If the true spirit was a human, this small dot would at most be a small wound and it wouldn't be a big deal. It was a pity that the true spirit was connected to the spirit soul. Even a trace of damage would cause immense pain. Under the pain, the Earth Fire Monarch couldn't concentrate on the battle. Who exactly are you? The Earth Fire Monarch put on a fierce expression but was actually cowardly. Such a powerful spiritual awareness attack. It meant that he either cultivated a 7-star spiritual awareness attack secret technique or his spiritual awareness was extremely powerful and was comparable with formidable primary sea realm monarchs. No matter which it was a threat to the Earth Fire Monarch. It isn't important who I am. The important thing is that the battle between us is meaningless. Li Fuchen might be able to suppress the Earth Fire Monarch for a short period of time, but he wasn't naive enough to think that the Earth Fire Monarch didn't have any strength to retaliate. Primary Sea Realm Monarchs were Monarch-class in all aspects. Monarch-class masters might be able to fight against low-level monarchs, but there were certain aspects that were inferior to low-level monarchs. Is there no meaning to it? You are too naive. The Earth Fire Monarch reached out his hand and grabbed. Countless fire elemental yuan qi gathered from all directions. In the blink of an eye, the fire elemental yuan qi within a radius of a few miles had condensed, causing the space within a few miles to turn scarlet red. It was like a giant scarlet amber. Controlling the nature power. This was the most basic ability of a primary sea realm monarch. With this valiant ability, a primary sea realm monarch could easily suppress those with inferior cultivation. I have forgotten about this. Li Fuchen felt his body getting several times heavier and his qi circulation was much slower. In fact, his qi was even showing signs of dissipating. If Li Fuchen had to describe it, he was like a mosquito that was trapped in amber and it was getting more strenuous. Again. The Earth Fire Monarch was still absorbing more fire Dao Qi. When dealing with a powerful battle spirit realm great master like Li Fuchen, using heaven and earth power to suppress him was the best method. Great masters and monarch-class masters only had powerful attack power, but their adaptability to the environment was several times or even 10 times inferior to primary sea realm monarchs. You want to try again? Li Fuchen's eyes flashed with a horrific luster. The Avian King Thorn was shot out and buried into the Earth Fire Monarch's mind. During this period of time, the Earth Fire Monarch used the Fire Dao Qi to create plenty of clones. But when scanned by Li Fuchen's spiritual awareness, it was obvious which clones were real and fake. It was basically useless. The Earth Fire Monarch yelled out miserably. The Avian King Thorn was considered an improved version of the Quintessence and its lethality was 30% stronger than the Avian King Thorn. Even a second-level monarch like the Earth Fire Monarch couldn't withstand it. I don't believe how many times can you execute the spiritual awareness attack. The Earth-Fire Monarch forcefully endured. In his opinion, it was already good for a regular person to execute the spiritual awareness attack 3 to 5 times. Even if Li Fuchen executed the spiritual awareness attack over a dozen times, the Earth-Fire Monarch's true spirit would only be damaged. Therefore, the Earth-Fire Monarch felt that he could withstand it. Is that so? Li Fuchen shot out bundles of avian kingthorns while the sharp bird cries echoed and didn't stop. After over a dozen times, the Earth-Fire Monarch's expression changed. Li Fuchen's spiritual awareness wasn't just of high quality and was comparable with formidable primary Sea Realm monarchs. Even the density of his spiritual awareness wasn't inferior to formidable primary Sea Realm monarchs. Impossible? The Earth-Fire Monarch didn't dare to believe this fact. Even a person with spirit-soul aptitude shouldn't possess so much spiritual awareness. From the looks of Li Fuchen, it was obvious that over a dozen spiritual awareness attacks weren't the limit. How could the Earth-Fire Monarch know that Li Fuchen had devoured the spiritual awareness of a primary Sea Realm monarch and a demonic beast ruler? The density of his spiritual awareness was at least at the level of an elite primary Sea Realm monarch. If it wasn't for the fact that Li Fuchen's cultivation level was too low and it was hard for him to utilize his spiritual awareness to the limit, a single attack would be enough to turn the Earth-Fire Monarch into an idiot. Thousand illusion eyes, oblivion. Just as the Earth-Fire Monarch was in a daze from the intense pain, a pair of giant pupils appeared in his vision. Immediately after, he felt his spirit soul leaving his body and being dragged into a glowing world. A mere battle spirit realm great master dares to contest with me. There are so many mid-grade spirit stones and heaven stones. I have finally progressed to the 5th level of primary Sea Realm. The heavens are truly biased towards me. I, the Earth-Fire Monarch, actually have the chance to become a Law Phase Realm Emperor. Red Moon Emperor, you actually don't give me any face. It seems like your reign as an emperor is coming to an end. In the glowing world, the Earth-Fire Monarch's chief fate was like a rainbow and his cultivation was constantly rising. In just a short period of time, he went from a regular primary Sea Realm monarch to a powerful Law Phase Realm Emperor. In the Emperor Sky continent, he was on the same level as the Red Moon Emperor and might even be able to suppress him. After the Fire Dao Qi dispersed, Li Fuchen flashed and appeared in front of the Earth-Fire Monarch. The flaming snake sword drew across and a scarlet thread flashed. Clink. A finger pressed against the bright scarlet thread. At the crucial moment, the Earth-Fire Monarch woke up. His forehead was drenched in sweat and the Earth-Fire Monarch was filled with fear. If his body didn't instinctively sense danger, he wouldn't be able to wake up from the illusion. If he didn't wake up, he would probably be separated from his body. Li Fuchen didn't just have incredible spiritual awareness attacks. Even his illusion art attacks were terrifying. There was no justice in this world. It is a pity. Li Fuchen flew back. He knew that primary Sea Realm monarchs were hard to kill, but he didn't expect it to be this hard. Kid, I will remember you. I will let you off for now. Next time, I will make sure you die without a burial ground. Without any hesitation, the Earth-Fire Monarch retreated frantically and turned into a flaming light that vanished without a trace. Li Fuchen was rather flabbergasted. The Earth-Fire Monarch escaped too cleanly. Wasn't he going to try again? How could Li Fuchen know that when his spiritual awareness attack and illusion art attacks were combined, it was too intimidating to the Earth-Fire Monarch? If it was just a simple powerful spiritual awareness attack, the Earth-Fire Monarch wouldn't have left so easily. After forcefully exhaling a turbid breath, Li Fuchen's face flashed with confidence. Just a moment ago, he had repelled a second-level monarch. This second-level monarch might be rather weak and didn't cultivate heaven-class martial arts or 7-star secret techniques. It seemed like even his bone frame was rather low-class. Chapter 566. This child's overall strength is considered strong even among the monarch-class masters. After returning to the Bronze Mountain City, the Earth-Fire Monarch was extremely sullen. He was a second-level monarch and he was actually chased away by a battle spirit realm master. If this news got out, he would definitely become a joke. If I didn't lend my green fire lamp to Big Brother, it would be enough to burn this child to death. The green fire lamp was an Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifact and was able to emit destructive green fire. When activated by his primary Sea Realm Qi, it was enough to burn a regular third-level monarch to death, let alone a mere Li Fuchen. I wonder when Big Brother is coming back. I have to get back the green fire lamp quickly. According to Li Fuchen's previous plan, he would head to the Bronze Mountain City's stone gambling den after exchanging the Heaven Stones at the underground market. Now that the plan had changed, Li Fuchen was planning to head to the county city's South Sun City's stone gambling den to take a look. 9 days later, at the southern entrance of South Sun City, 10 low-grade spirit stones per person. Don't even think of getting away with it. As the county city of the South Sun County, the entrance fee for the South Sun City was 10 low-grade spirit stones. Other cities would only have 2 or 3 low-grade spirit stones. After all, the city might be huge, but it couldn't accommodate too many people. The South Sun City had a permanent population of around 200 to 300 million, while the entire South Sun County had a population of over 10 billion. Furthermore, the entrance fee of 10 low-grade spirit stones was just the beginning. In any main city of the Emperor Sky Continent, people weren't allowed to stay on the streets. Those who stayed on the streets would normally be chased out of the city. Therefore, they had to find an inn to stay, and by then, they would have to pay a considerable amount of low-grade spirit stones. After entering the South Sun City, Li Fuchen headed straight for the stone gambling den. It was also a 10-floor stone gambling den, but the South Sun City's stone gambling den was much more imposing. Li Fuchen took a quick glance and arrived at the 7th floor of the stone gambling den. The ores here would cost at least 300 mid-grade spirit stones per piece, and it was twice as expensive as other cities. No mid-grade heaven stones. After purchasing 10 ores that contained low-grade heaven stones, Li Fuchen headed to the 8th floor. Li Fuchen originally thought that the 8th floor wouldn't have any mid-grade heaven stones, but when he purchased 11 ores that contained low-grade heaven stones, he arrived in front of an inconspicuous ore and held his breath. Within this inconspicuous ore, there was a cup-sized celestial stone that was suffused with a resplendent azure luster. Compared to this piece of heaven stone, substandard grade heaven stones and low-grade heaven stones were just like coarse stones that were hard to look at. Mid-grade heaven stone. Even if Li Fuchen was a fool, he would understand that this was a mid-grade heaven stone. A fist-sized mid-grade heaven stone would be worth at least a few 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones. It wouldn't be strange for it to be worth more than 1 million mid-grade spirit stones. This piece of mid-grade heaven stone was only the size of a cup, but its value would not be lower than 200,000 to 300,000. As for high-grade heaven stones, Li Fuchen didn't dare to think about it. High-grade heaven stones were no longer priced using mid-grade spirit stones but high-grade spirit stones. A piece of fist-sized high-grade heaven stone was worth at least 10,000 high-grade spirit stones. If converted to mid-grade spirit stones, it would be more than 100 million. 100 million mid-grade spirit stones was an astronomical figure. The South Mountain City's Qi clan only had a few million mid-grade spirit stones. A piece of high-grade heaven stone was more than enough to buy 30 Qi clans. With this mid-grade heaven stone, it shouldn't be a problem for the flowing merciless edge to reach the trance stage. Li Fuchen revealed a smile and spent 500 mid-grade spirit stones to purchase this inconspicuous ore. 9th floor, there was a pleasant surprise. Li Fuchen had only strolled through half the floor and discovered another mid-grade heaven stone. This mid-grade heaven stone was the size of a bowl and its clarity was 1 level higher than the previous one. It was at least a mid-grade clarity. Li Fuchen reckoned that if he auctioned this mid-grade heaven stone, it wouldn't be a problem for his wealth to increase by 1 or 2 million mid-grade spirit stones. Of course, mid-grade heaven stones were extremely precious and it was better to keep them for his own use. After harvesting over 30 low-grade heaven stones and 2 mid-grade heaven stones, Li Fuchen left the stone gambling den and found an inn to stay in. On one of the streets of South Sun City, Qi Junjun and the handsome middle-aged man were walking side by side. "Fifth uncle, I heard that the finale item of this Purple Sun auction is a heaven-class low-tier weapon. I wonder if it is true. Qi Junjun said. The handsome middle-aged man said, the Purple Sun auction is held once every 3 years. Each time, the finale item would be extremely precious. Previously, it was a mid-grade heaven stone that was a few feet in size. It is normal for it to be a heaven-class low-tier weapon this time. But these aren't things that we can get our hands on. Our target is just some Earth-class peak-tier equipment or cardinal artifacts. Be it the mid-grade heaven stone that was a few feet in size or the heaven-class low-tier weapon, they were all items that elite primary Sea realm monarchs or half-emperors would fight for. Even if regular primary Sea realm monarchs had the wealth, they wouldn't dare to bid for it. Qi Junjun nodded. Her Qi clan was only a first-rate clan in the South Mountain City and was only a third-rate monarch-class clan in the entire Red Moon Empire. This Purple Sun auction had attracted the attention of the entire South Sun County. Let alone third-rate monarch-class clans, there were plenty of second-rate monarch-class clans and plenty of monarch-class sections. Snow Dance Restaurant was one of the top 10 restaurants in South Sun City. On the highest floor of the restaurant, in a private room, the Red Rainbow Monarch and the Three-Eyed Saber Monarch were drinking wine. Great wine. Every time I drink the wine here, it will remind me of my youth. The Three-Eyed Saber Monarch put down the wine cup and lamented. The Red Rainbow Monarch laughed and said, life has its ups and downs. Wine has its ups and downs too. The Three-Eyed Saber Monarch nodded. Tasting wine is like tasting life. But life isn't tasting wine. There are plenty of monarchs in this Purple Sun auction. It won't be an easy task to bid for that heaven-class low-tier artifact sword. Even if you manage to bid for it, you will probably provoke some formidable foes. The Red Rainbow Monarch raised his wine cup but didn't drink it. He said slowly, heaven-class equipment is rare in the Emperor Sky continent. Every time it appears, there will be a bloodbath. But if I have the heaven-class artifact sword, I won't be afraid even if I encounter a half-emperor. In fact, even without the heaven-class low-tier artifact sword, the Red Rainbow Monarch wasn't too afraid of half-emperors. If he couldn't defeat them, he could simply leave. With the heaven-class low-tier artifact sword, with his strength, he wouldn't be weak even among the half-emperors. Li Fuchen didn't know anything about the Purple Sun auction. Right now, he was completely immersed in the comprehension of the mid-grade heaven stone. The heaven and earth laws contained within the mid-grade heaven stone were too concentrated and clear. Li Fuchen felt like an infant crying piteously for food as he greedily absorbed the laws. Fire Dao Law. Sword Dao Law. Wind Dao Law. Li Fuchen comprehended the most of these 3 laws. It was mainly because Li Fuchen's sword art had these 3 laws. Of course, these 3 laws had differences in strength. The Fire Dao Law and Sword Dao Law were on par, while the Wind Dao Law was much weaker than the other 2 laws. Li Fuchen had also comprehended a lot of other miscellaneous laws. It might not be comparable to the 3 laws, but as compared to those 7-star geniuses, he might even be stronger. Flowing Merciless Edge. When the Fire Dao Law and Sword Dao Law were comprehended to a certain level, Li Fuchen was enlightened. He raised his right index and middle finger and formed a sword finger before drawing lightly. A scarlet thread appeared and didn't dissipate even after a long time. Trance stage. At this moment, Li Fuchen pushed the flowing merciless edge to the trance stage and his sword intent was reaching perfection. At the same time, Li Fuchen's combat strength had also reached the monarch class master level and was enough to contest with regular low-level monarchs. If he complemented it with his spiritual awareness attack and illusion art attack, he would be able to sweep his opponents. Incineration Sword. After the flowing merciless edge was the Incineration Sword. As Li Fuchen thrust with his finger, a scarlet bubble appeared in the void. If it was in the past, this bubble would instantly burst open. But this time, it didn't burst open for a long time and quietly floated in the void. Trance stage. The Incineration Sword was originally at the subperfection stage, but it had jumped 2 levels and reached the trance stage. Immediately after, the Sky Ring Sword armor had also jumped 2 levels and reached the trance stage. With 3 heaven-class sword moves at the trance stage, Li Fuchen's combat strength was unprecedentedly powerful. If he was to go against the Earth Fire Monarch, he didn't even need to use his spiritual awareness attack and illusion art attack. Li Fuchen was confident he could contest and even suppress the Earth Fire Monarch. Meteor Fall. Before the 3 heaven-class sword moves reached the trance stage, there was a burst of inspiration in Li Fuchen's mind, and the meteor sword intent had finally reached the heaven class. With a point of his finger, a dazzling sword Qi drew across the sky and shot at the courtyard's array. A small hole was drilled in the courtyard's array and it was nearly broken. Time has slowed down? Li Fuchen raised his brows. When he executed the meteor fall earlier, Li Fuchen felt that time had slowed down a little. He knew clearly that it wasn't time that had slowed down, but the sword Qi's flying speed was too fast. When the speed was at the extremity, it would create the illusion that time had slowed down. Li Fuchen's spiritual awareness was at the pinnacle level of primary Sea realm monarchs, and even he felt that time had slowed down. If it was a regular low-level monarch, the effects would probably be even more exaggerated. Of course, Li Fuchen would only know after experimenting. 3 days later, Li Fuchen exited from seclusion. Purple Sun Auction? Heaven-class low-tier weapon? After obtaining the information about the Purple Sun Auction, Li Fuchen raised his brows. He currently had close to 500,000 mid-grade spirit stones in his pocket. These spirit stones would only take up space and wouldn't bring him any benefits. Only by using the spirit stones was the way of the king. Heaven-class low-tier weapons aren't something that I can covet, but Earth-class peak-tier artifact swords are still worth competing for. Earth-class high-tier equipment and Earth-class peak-tier equipment might seem to have a difference of 1 level, but they were 2 different worlds. Chapter 567. The Triennial Purple Sun Auction was held as scheduled. The sky had just turned bright and South Sun City had already gathered a large number of primary Sea realm monarchs. No one knew how many primary Sea realm monarchs there were in the South Sun County. If the clans of the Red Moon Empire were to be graded, they would be classified into 5 classes. They were the Emperor-class clans, first-rate monarch-class clans, second-rate monarch-class clans, third-rate monarch-class clans, and unrated monarch-class clans. The South Sun County wasn't considered a major county, but it had 5 second-rate monarch-class clans and around 40 to 50 third-rate monarch-class clans. As for the unrated monarch-class clans, there were plenty of them, around 500 if not 800. If the unrated monarch-class clans only had 1 or 2 primary Sea realm monarchs, the third-rate monarch-class clans would have over a dozen monarchs. Second-rate monarch-class clans would have dozens of monarchs. As such, just the major clans in the South Sun County had close to 2,000 primary Sea realm monarchs. If the monarchs from monarch-class sects were included and some of the lone monarchs were a few times more. In the face of the Purple Sun Auction that was held once every 3 years, no one wouldn't be tempted. All the major factions had dispatched primary Sea realm monarchs over, and in just 1 hour, over 100 monarchs had appeared in everyone's vision. As time elapsed, there would be more primary Sea realm monarchs. Among the crowd, the disguised Li Fuchen lamented. The Emperor Sky Continent was indeed worthy of its name. A county's primary Sea realm monarchs were already more than the 7 color continents' primary Sea realm monarchs. A county's size was obviously inferior to the entire 7 color continent and was probably several times smaller than the Red Soil continent. All of a sudden, Li Fuchen saw the Red Rainbow Monarch and the Three-Eyed Saber Monarch. The Red Rainbow Monarch was the sect patriarch of the Red Rainbow sect, while the Three-Eyed Saber Monarch was the supreme grand elder of the Red Rainbow sect. The 2 of them were considered the top 2 monarchs in the Red Rainbow sect. Even the sect patriarch and supreme grand elder are here. It seems like they are here for the heaven-class low-tier weapon. A heaven-class low-tier weapon was equivalent to a weaker heaven-class low-tier martial art. For example, if a person without a heaven-class low-tier martial art had a heaven-class low-tier weapon, they would be able to push the power of an earth-class peak-tier martial art to the heaven-class low-tier. Of course, it was just in terms of power. In terms of skill and profundity, it was still inferior to heaven-class low-tier martial arts. Even so, it was still terrifying. And if one had already mastered a low-tier heaven-class martial art, then a low-tier heaven-class weapon would be enough to push the power of this low-tier heaven-class martial art to the level of a mid-tier heaven-class martial art. This would be a success in battles of the same level. Soon enough, Li Fuchen noticed Qi Junjun and the handsome middle-aged man. During his battle with Dongwu Junyan that day, he'd clearly sensed that someone was spectating the battle, and if he wasn't wrong, it ought to be Qi Junjun and this handsome middle-aged man. At this time, the sky was already bright, and thousands of people gathered in the nearby streets. Apart from a considerable number of primary Sea Realm monarchs, there were more Battle Spirit Realm masters. There were many young grandmasters among them. Everyone, the auction is about to begin. Please come in. Right at this moment, the doors of the auction house opened one after another, and the host raised his voice. It's finally begun. After 3 years, the Purple Sun auction is finally here. I hope I can obtain a valuable treasure in this auction. Amidst the clamor, everyone filed in. The interior of the Purple Sun auction house was massive and was in the shape of a giant bowl. According to individual requirements, the auction house had set up 4 classes of seats. They were normal seats, VIP seats, private room seats, and supreme seats. Apart from the normal seats, the other 3 classes of seats were set up with isolation arrays that could isolate spiritual awareness from scouting. However, the VIP seats could only isolate Battle Spirit Realm Master scouting, while the private room seats and supreme seats could isolate primary Sea Realm Monarch scouting. According to the different classes, the spirit stones collected were different too. Normal seats would cost 5 mid-grade spirit stones, VIP seats would cost 100 mid-grade spirit stones, private room seats would cost 2,000 mid-grade spirit stones, while the supreme seats were only for esteemed individuals like the various monarch-class sects patriarchs and supreme elders, the various second-rate monarch-class clans patriarchs, or the upper echelons of the city lord residences. As a precaution, Li Fuchen picked a private room. After all, 2,000 mid-grade spirit stones wasn't considered much to him. The auction house that could accommodate up to 10,000 individuals was quickly filled up. After waiting for 15 minutes, a first-level primary Sea Realm gray-haired auctioneer walked up the stage. Everyone, welcome to the Triennial Purple Sun auction. This old man is Luo Qiong, the auctioneer of this auction. There are a total of 126 auction items in this year's auction. This is the richest auction in the past 100 years. This old man congratulates everyone in advance that you will be able to obtain the items you want. After clearing his throat, Luo Qiong spoke loudly. Time is tight, this old man shall not waste any more time. Bring out the first auction item. In response, 2 beautiful ladies carried a large tray and walked up the stage. Luo Qiong lifted the cloth on the tray and spoke with a resounding voice. Mountain Collapsing Hammer, 25,000 kilograms, Earth-class peak-tier weapon, 1-star evaluation, starting price of 2,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Each increment must not be lower than 10 mid-grade spirit stones. The bidding shall begin. The difference between Earth-class peak-tier weapons and Heaven-class low-tier weapons was too great, therefore, they were separated into 4 classes. They were normal 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star. In normal situations, primary Sea Realm monarchs would use 2-star or 3-star Earth-class peak-tier weapons and wouldn't bother about normal and 1-star weapons. 2,100, 2,200, 2,400. The bidders were all Battle Spirit Realm Masters, and primary Sea Realm monarchs wouldn't lower themselves to the point of bidding for 1-star Earth-class peak-tier weapons. Ultimately, this Mountain Collapsing Hammer was purchased by a Battle Spirit Realm Master in the VIP seats for the price of 2,800 mid-grade spirit stones. The second auction item was much more precious than the Mountain Collapsing Hammer, and the starting price was only 500 mid-grade spirit stones. It was normal after thinking about it. The first auction item would normally be an artifact with mid-grade value. As such, it would be able to liven up the atmosphere and wouldn't be too depressing. 29th auction item, Thunder Bracelet. Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifact. Starting price of 3,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Each increment must not be lower than 10 mid-grade spirit stones. Boom. The auction hall was in an instant commotion. In the Emperor Sky continent, Earth-class high-tier weapons and Earth-class peak-tier weapons were two different worlds. Earth-class mid-tier cardinal artifacts and Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifacts were also two different worlds. Earth-class mid-tier cardinal artifacts would only be able to exhibit the power of a regular high-level Battle Spirit Realm Master when activated by the Battle Spirit Realm. Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifacts would be able to exhibit the power of Pinnacle Masters or even Great Masters when activated by the Battle Spirit Realm. Great Masters were already comparable with weaker first-level Primary Sea Realm Monarchs. 3,500, 3,800, 4,000. As compared to the previous auction items, the competition for the Thunder Bracelet was more than 2 times more intense. Plenty of Primary Sea Realm Monarchs were participating in the bidding. After all, even if they couldn't use it, they could give it to their juniors. 4,500. In a private room, the handsome middle-aged man beside Qi Junjun shook the bell and called out the price of 4,500. The bidding was still ongoing. An Earth-class high-tier offensive cardinal artifact wasn't going to be bought at the price of 4,500. When the price exceeded 6,000, most of the people had given up. 6,000 mid-grade spirit stones wasn't a small sum. Regular Primary Sea Realm Monarchs would only have a few tens of thousands of mid-grade spirit stones. Those that were still bidding were the Primary Sea Realm Monarchs from the major third-rate Monarch class clans. As for the Monarch class sects and second-rate Monarch class clans, they weren't interested in Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifacts. Their target was Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifacts. Of course, it was mainly because the price was too high. This was just the first Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifact, and there wasn't a need to bid crazily. In the end, the Thunder Bracelet was won by the handsome middle-aged man beside Qi Junjun at the price of 7,500 mid-grade spirit stones. Many thanks, fifth uncle. Qi Junjun knew that her fifth uncle bid for the Thunder Bracelet for her. The handsome middle-aged man said, Junjun, you are our Qi clan's most talented descendant. This Thunder Bracelet shall be temporarily used for self-defense. Qi Junjun's cultivation was only at the 7th level of Battle Spirit Realm and her strength was only at the Elite Master level. She was still lacking when compared to a Pinnacle Master, let alone a Great Master. There wasn't just one Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifact. Subsequently, there were a few more Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifacts and each of them were sold for at least 6,000 mid-grade spirit stones. There was an Earth-class high-tier cardinal artifact that could be used for both offense and defense that was sold for 10,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Auction item number 55, Earth-class peak-tier artifact sword, Red Lotus Sword. 2-star evaluation. The starting price is 5,000 mid-grade spirit stones and each increment must be at least 10 mid-grade spirit stones. When the 55th auction item was presented, Li Fuchen's eyes flashed with radiance. A 2-star Earth-class peak-tier artifact sword was definitely the most suitable for him. A 3-star Earth-class peak-tier artifact sword might be better, but it might not appear in the auction. Even if it appeared, there would definitely be plenty of Primary Sea Realm Monarchs participating in the bidding and there would probably be high-level monarchs among them. Li Fuchen didn't wish to become a thorn in the eyes of some Primary Sea Realm Monarchs because of a 3-star Earth-class peak-tier artifact sword. There were times when one had to know when to give up. 5,500, 6,000. 6,500, 7,000. The 2-star Earth-class peak-tier artifact sword was rather attractive and the price was constantly climbing. Those who made bids were basically Primary Sea Realm Monarchs. Of course, they were mostly low-level monarchs or a few mid-level monarchs. High-level monarchs were only interested in 3-star Earth-class peak-tier weapons. 10,000. Li Fuchen shook the bell and made a sky-high bid. With close to 500,000 mid-grade spirit stones, he wasn't afraid at all. 11,000. In a private room, a third-level Primary Sea Realm robust middle-aged man emitted sword intent and said ruthlessly, 12,000. Li Fuchen followed up with a bid. Bang. The armrest was smashed and the robust middle-aged man scanned Li Fuchen's private room with his spiritual awareness. It was a pity that the private room was enveloped by an isolation array and his spiritual awareness wasn't able to enter. The robust middle-aged man didn't make another bid as 12,000 mid-grade spirit stones had already exceeded his desired price. Soon enough, the Red Lotus sword was delivered to Li Fuchen's private room. The Red Lotus sword was just like its name, it was scarlet red like blood and there were lotus flowers carved on the blade. It gave off a scorching and enchanting feeling. Great sword. Li Fuchen revealed a smile. Chapter 568. The auction continued, and one treasure after another was revealed, triggering an intense bidding war. The 65th auction item is a top-rank Earth Realm armor, the Red Lotus armor, rated as 2 stars. This armor and the Red Lotus sword are a set, and the craftsman is the famous king of crafting, Safflower Crafting King. The starting price is 10,000 mid-rank soul stones. As the auctioneer Luo Qiong's voice fell, bids were continuously made. At this time, no one cared whether the Red Lotus sword and the Red Lotus armor were a set or not. Anyway, it did not affect the use. In particular, some kings who were not swordsmen were not interested in the Red Lotus sword, but they were very interested in the Red Lotus armor. 15,000, 18,000. The price of the Red Lotus armor continued to rise and soon approached 20,000. 25,000. It was impossible for Li Fuchen to give up the Red Lotus armor. Since the Red Lotus sword and the Red Lotus armor were a set, the effect of the two combined should be beyond that of a single piece. Therefore, he added 7,000 yuan at once. Who is this? So domineering. Those that are seated in private rooms are mostly primary sea realm monarchs. You are wrong about this. When the auction started, I saw a young man at the Battle Spirit Realm entering this private room. A Battle Spirit Realm martial artist dares to contest for the Red Lotus armor? What is his background? Li Fuchen's bid had caused a controversy. No one believed that Li Fuchen didn't have any background. A Battle Spirit Realm master without any background wouldn't have so many spirit stones. These days, there were times when young masters were even more dangerous to provoke than primary sea realm monarchs. Some time ago, a mid-level monarch killed a young master. In the end, this young master was an emperor-class disciple of a certain monarch-class sect. Now that things were over, the monarch-class sect sent out all the monarchs to investigate. In the end, this mid-level monarch and his clan were eradicated overnight. Back then, even the city lord residence that was maintaining order didn't dare to say anything as they were afraid of infuriating the monarch-class sect. 26,000. In a private room that wasn't far from Li Fuchen, a 5th-level primary sea realm cultivator with a fierce and ugly appearance made a bid. 30,000. Li Fuchen was determined to obtain the Red Lotus armor. Damn it. The ugly king crushed the teacup in his hand and stopped bidding. The others also stopped bidding. 30,000 was too high. In an auction, the final price of an item would only exceed the starting bid by about half. More than double was already a premium. If the price reached 2 times, it would be an extreme premium. Only some popular auction items would have a premium price, but 2 times was almost the limit. More than 2 times was completely against the spirit stones. The 82nd auction item, Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifact, Sun Ring. This ring is extremely rare and once chi is poured in, the Sun Divine Needle can be shot out. When activated by the Battle Spirit Realm, it can kill low-level primary sea realm monarchs. When activated by the primary sea realm, it can kill mid-level primary sea realm monarchs. The starting price is 30,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Luo Qiong's face was filled with confidence. He believed that this sun ring would definitely cause an uproar. 35,000, 40,000, 45,000. As expected, when the extremely dazzling sun ring appeared in everyone's eyes, everyone went into a frenzy. Even some of the mid-level monarchs revealed an interested expression. When a Battle Spirit Realm expert was wearing this ring, it meant that he had the means to kill low-level monarchs. When a low-level monarch was wearing this ring, it meant that he had the means to kill mid-level primary sea realm monarchs. Even if a mid-level primary sea realm monarch was wearing this ring, it would allow him to have more methods. During the crucial moment, he might be able to defeat the enemy. After all, There were times when cardinal artifacts were much more reliable than qi. In the qi restriction array, qi wouldn't be able to flow out of the body, but cardinal artifacts could release qi attacks. 50,000. What is 50,000? I will bid 55,000. I, Golden Spear Monarch, will bid 60,000. Anyone who dares to bid against me is not giving me any face. Golden Spear Monarch was a 4th level primary sea realm monarch and was considered an influential figure in the South Sun County. Most importantly, the Sun Ring might be good, but it wasn't very useful against mid-level primary sea realm monarchs. Therefore, he dared to be so arrogant. Golden Spear Monarch, others might be afraid of you, but I, Wind Saber Monarch, isn't. 62,000. Wind Saber Monarch, there will be a day when I beat you up into the Mad Saber Monarch. The Golden Spear Monarch had a vicious expression and didn't bid anymore. Golden Spear Monarch's entire wealth was only around 500,000 to 600,000 mid-grade spirit stones, but most of them were useful items. He didn't even have 200,000 mid-grade spirit stones, and there wasn't a need to fight to the death with the opposition. Of course, if this Sun Ring wasn't an Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifact but a quasi-heaven-class cardinal artifact, he would have to buy it even if he had to sell his entire wealth. But by then, with his strength and wealth, he wouldn't be qualified to contest for the quasi-heaven-class cardinal artifact. Everyone, don't be in a hurry. The next few items are all Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifacts. The 83rd auction item is the Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifact, Wind Thunder Wings. This is a flying cardinal artifact and can increase the martial artist's flying speed. Its limit speed is almost equivalent to mid-level primary sea realm monarchs. The starting price is 40,000 mid-grade spirit stones. If the appearance of the Sun Ring was enough to make low-level primary sea realm monarchs go crazy, then the appearance of the Wind Thunder Wings was enough to make low-level primary sea realm monarchs lose control. The Sun Ring only had the power to kill mid-level primary sea realm monarchs, but it didn't mean that the Sun Ring could contest with mid-level primary sea realm monarchs. But the Wind Thunder Wings were different. With the Wind Thunder Wings, even if one couldn't defeat a mid-level primary sea realm monarch, one would still be able to escape quickly. Unless one was unlucky enough to encounter a mid-level primary sea realm monarch that was adept at speed. 50,000, 60,000. 70,000. There was an endless stream of bids. The Golden Spear Monarch and the Wind Saber Monarch were also making bids. The two of them were only at the 4th level of primary sea realm, and the items that low-level primary sea realm monarchs required were also useful to them. 100,000. There was a stern voice that echoed. Everyone looked up. It was the private room that purchased the Red Lotus sword and Red Lotus armor. The one who made the bid was indeed Li Fuchen. He didn't care about the Sun Ring as he had the strength of a Monarch-class master. If the Sun Ring was in the hands of a Battle Spirit Realm master, it would only be able to exhibit the power of a Monarch-class master, and it was useless to him. Once he progressed to the Primary Sea Realm, his strength would probably be at the mid-level Primary Sea Realm, and he didn't need the Sun Ring anymore. Therefore, he wouldn't spend a large number of Spirit Stones to purchase something that he didn't really need. But the Wind Thunder Wings were different. Speed had always been his shortcoming. In fact, for those absolute prodigies that could surpass levels to fight, speed was everyone's shortcoming. Attack power could be enhanced by weapons and martial arts. However, there weren't many items that could enhance speed. This is too exaggerated. This is 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones. It is equivalent to 1 billion low-grade spirit stones, and it is equivalent to half of the clan wealth of some unrated clans. It is truly infuriating to compare with others. I don't even have 2,000 mid-grade spirit stones on me, and he can casually take out 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones. On the ordinary seats, many of the Battle Spirit Realm masters revealed envious expressions. 110,000. If it was something else, the price of 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones would probably scare everyone away. But the Wind Thunder Wings were too important to low-level primary sea realm monarchs. One of the low-level primary sea realm monarchs made a bid with a deep voice. These people are all lunatics. The Golden Spear Monarch thought about it and still didn't make a bid. He only had over 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones, and it wasn't worth it to use them to purchase the Wind Thunder Wings. Of course, if he was at the low-level primary sea realm, he would probably risk it too. The Wind Saber Monarch also didn't make a bid. The current price was too ruthless and it wasn't worth it. 130,000. Li Fuchen continued to bid. Damn it, damn it. In a private room in the corner, there was a first-level primary sea realm man with a curly beard who was fuming with rage. For the sake of this auction, he had sold off many treasures that he didn't have much use for, all for the sake of obtaining something that was extremely useful to him. Without a doubt, the Wind Thunder Wings were extremely useful to him. He was only at the first level of primary sea realm and was definitely at the bottom among the monarchs. The Wind Thunder Wings were enough for him to escape from the pursuit of regular mid-level primary sea realm monarchs. When he was out on an adventure, he would also be able to escape faster. It could be said that the Wind Thunder Wings had increased his survivability by several times. I don't care who you are. If you snatch my artifact, you will have to pay the price. The curly-bearded man gritted his teeth. Ultimately, Li Fuchen purchased the Wind Thunder Wings for 130,000 mid-grade spirit stones. Inside the private room, Li Fuchen was sizing up the pale blue wings that were emitting electric arcs. He thought to himself, with this Wind Thunder Wings, my shortcoming in speed is considered to be compensated. The Wind Thunder Wings were obviously a cardinal artifact that was forged with the wing feathers of demonic beasts. If Li Fuchen didn't guess it wrongly, the owner of the feather was at least a mid-tier demonic beast king. Otherwise, it wasn't that easy to reach mid-level primary sea realm in terms of extreme speed. The rest of the cardinal artifacts were all Earth-class peak tier. There was a defensive cardinal artifact that even mid-level primary sea realm monarchs were involved. The final price was even higher than the Wind Thunder Wings and was at an astonishing 150,000 mid-grade spirit stones. 100th auction item, 7-star secret technique, Heavenly King Battle Chi Dao. This secret technique can allow battle spirit realm masters to burst out with chi frenziedly and exceed their limits. It can allow primary sea realm monarchs to surpass one level in combat. The starting price is 100,000 mid-grade spirit stones. The 100th auction item was actually a 7-star secret technique. To monarch-class sects, 7-star secret techniques might not be considered much as they had 1 or 2 chi amplification secret techniques. But to the Emperor Sky Continent's factions, 7-star secret techniques were generally in the hands of first-rate monarch-class factions and emperor-class factions. Regular second-rate monarch-class factions would rarely have 7-star secret techniques. Therefore, when this 7-star secret technique was revealed, the price rose drastically and soon reached a sky-high price of 200,000 mid-grade spirit stones. 7-star secret techniques and cardinal artifacts were different. Cardinal artifacts had limits. 7-star secret techniques didn't have limits at the primary sea realm. The Heavenly King Battle Chi Dao was useful for first-level monarchs and 9th-level monarchs. Therefore, its value was far beyond any other Earth-class peak-tier cardinal artifact. Welcome to Legends of Cultivation, audiobooks, where we bring ancient fantasy to life through storytelling. Follow the rise of heroes who defy fate, unlock mystical powers, and battle across celestial realms. Our audiobooks are crafted for fans of Chinese cultivation novels, filled with battles, breakthroughs, and legendary artifacts. Subscribe and be part of an unforgettable journey into the realm of immortality.